My name is Lena Kowalski, and I'm really good with computers. I'm 29 years old and work as an IT specialist. That means I fix problems with computers, make sure they run smoothly, and sometimes even build new computer systems. I loved my job, especially figuring out tricky problems. Our office wasn't super fancy, but it was filled with people I liked, mostly. For the past few years, I'd been working really hard. I always arrived early and stayed late, helping everyone with their computer issues. I even took extra classes at night to learn new things about coding and cybersecurity. Why? Because there was a promotion coming up. My boss, Mr. Thompson, was going to pick someone to be the new head of IT, which meant more responsibility and, most importantly, more money. I really wanted that promotion. I had big plans. I wanted to save up for a down payment on a small house with a big garden, where I could grow tomatoes and maybe even get a dog. A fluffy one. So, I put all my energy into showing Mr. Thompson that I was the best person for the job. I fixed the printer when it broke down, again, I helped Mrs. Davis in accounting when her spreadsheet wouldn't work, and I even stayed late one Friday night to fix a major security problem before it caused any trouble. I felt ready. I felt like all my hard work was finally going to pay off. Little did I know, someone else had their eye on that promotion too, and they weren't playing fair. Her name was Brenda. The thought of that promotion kept me going. It wasn't just about the money, although that was definitely a big part of it. It was also about feeling like my hard work was being seen and appreciated. Becoming head of IT meant I would get to lead projects, make important decisions about the company's technology, and help shape the future of our department. I imagined myself organizing training sessions for the other employees, teaching them new tricks and tips to make their jobs easier. I pictured myself setting up a brand new computer lab, filled with the latest gadgets and gizmos. Mr. Thompson had told us that the decision would be made at the end of the month, which meant I had just a few more weeks to really shine. I started making a list of all the things I wanted to do as head of IT. One of my ideas was to create a special website where employees could ask for help with their computer problems. That way, they wouldn't have to wait for me to come to their desks. They could just submit a question online and get a quick answer. I even started designing the website in my spare time, using my coding skills to make it look professional and easy to use. Another thing I planned was to upgrade our company's security system. I knew that hackers were becoming more and more clever, and I wanted to make sure our important data was safe. I researched different security software and came up with a plan to protect our computers from viruses and cyber attacks. I even practiced giving a presentation about my security plan, so I could impress Mr. Thompson with my knowledge and dedication. I was so excited and determined. I could almost taste the success. I just knew that promotion was meant for me. Brenda, on the other hand, didn't seem nearly as interested in the technical stuff. She was always chatting with people, going out for long lunches, and spending a lot of time on her phone. I thought she was nice enough, always smiling and saying hello, but I never really considered her a serious contender for the head of IT position. I figured Mr. Thompson would see right through her. She seemed more interested in being popular than in fixing computers. Brenda was very different from me. She always wore stylish clothes and perfect makeup. Her hair was always perfectly styled, and she had a collection of fancy purses that I envied. I usually just wore jeans and a t-shirt, and my hair was usually in a messy ponytail. I spent my time learning about computers, she spent hers learning about fashion. She would often ask me questions about my projects, and I was always happy to share my ideas. I thought we were just being friendly coworkers, supporting each other. She'd say things like, "Wow, Lena, that website idea is so smart," or "Your security plan sounds really impressive." I took it as a compliment and never thought twice about it. I even showed her some of the code I was working on for the website, thinking she might be interested in learning a little bit about programming. Looking back, I realize I was incredibly naive. I was so focused on doing my best that I didn't see what Brenda was really up to. She was gathering information, not to learn, but to use against me. She was a wolf in sheep's clothing, and I was about to find out just how sharp her teeth were. Looking back, there were little things I noticed about Brenda that should have raised red flags. For example, she started staying late at the office, something she never used to do. I would see her huddled in Mr. Thompson's office, talking quietly with him, and I couldn't help but wonder what they were discussing. Another time, I caught her snooping around my desk when I went to the break room to get a cup of coffee. When I came back, she quickly scurried away, pretending to be looking for something in the supply closet. I thought it was odd, but I didn't want to be rude, so I just ignored it. The most suspicious thing happened a few days before the promotion was supposed to be announced. I was working on my security plan presentation, putting the finishing touches on it, when I realized that my flash drive was missing. I searched everywhere for it, but I couldn't find it anywhere. I was so worried because that flash drive contained all my research, my presentation slides, and the code for the website I was designing. Without it, I wouldn't be able to show Mr. Thompson how prepared I was for the head of IT position. I asked Brenda if she had seen my flash drive, but she just shrugged and said she hadn't. She even offered to help me look for it, but I told her it was okay. I didn't want to bother her. Now I realize that she probably knew exactly where my flash drive was. She probably had it hidden in her purse, ready to steal my ideas and claim them as her own. The thought made my stomach churn. I should have been more careful. I should have seen through her act. But I was too trusting, too focused on doing my best. And now, I was about to pay the price. The day of the announcement arrived, and I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. I had stayed up late the night before, recreating my presentation from memory, but it wasn't the same. I was missing key details and some of the code for my website. I felt like I was going into battle without my sword. Mr. Thompson called a meeting in the conference room. Everyone gathered around the long table, their faces filled with anticipation. I sat next to Brenda, who gave me a wide, innocent smile. I tried to smile back, but my heart wasn't in it. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat and began to speak. As you all know, he said, we've been looking for someone to fill the position of head of IT. After careful consideration, I've made my decision. He paused for a moment, building the suspense. My palms were sweating. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I'm pleased to announce, he continued, that Brenda will be our new head of IT. The room erupted in applause. Brenda stood up and beamed, thanking Mr. Thompson and promising to do her best. I sat there, stunned and silent. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Brenda? Head of IT? It didn't make any sense. I watched as Brenda shook hands with Mr. Thompson and accepted congratulations from our coworkers. I felt like I was watching a movie, and it wasn't a very good one. My dream of getting the promotion, of buying a house and a dog, of finally feeling like my hard work had paid off, shattered into a million pieces. I felt betrayed, not just by Brenda, but by Mr. Thompson as well. How could he choose her over me? What had I done wrong? I was so confused and hurt, I wanted to run out of the room and never look back. For days, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. I couldn't concentrate at work, I couldn't sleep at night, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been cheated. I started questioning everything about myself. Was I not good enough? Was I not smart enough? Had I misread the situation completely? I replayed every conversation I had with Mr. Thompson, every project I had worked on, every extra hour I had put in. I tried to find some clue, some reason why he would choose Brenda over me. But I couldn't find anything. It just didn't make sense. I even considered quitting my job. What was the point of working so hard if someone else could just swoop in and steal all the credit? But then I thought about my dreams, about the house with the garden and the fluffy dog. I couldn't give up on those dreams. I had to find a way to make things right. One evening, I decided to stay late at the office to catch up on some work. The building was quiet and empty, except for the hum of the computers and the occasional creak of the floorboards. As I was walking down the hallway, I heard voices coming from Mr. Thompson's office. I paused, curious. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but the door was slightly ajar, and I couldn't help but overhear what they were saying. It was Mr. Thompson and Brenda. "Thank you so much, Brenda," Mr. Thompson said. "Your presentation was excellent. I was really impressed with your ideas for the new website and the security system upgrade." "You're welcome, Mr. Thompson," Brenda replied. "I'm just glad I could help the company." My heart sank. They were talking about my ideas, my presentation. Brenda had stolen my work and presented it as her own. That's how she got the promotion. That's how she had tricked Mr. Thompson. I felt a surge of anger, hotter and stronger than anything I had ever felt before. I wanted to burst into the office and confront them right then and there. But I knew that wouldn't solve anything. I needed proof. I needed to expose Brenda's fraud, and I needed to do it carefully. My first thought was the website code. I remembered emailing myself a copy of an earlier version of the code. It wasn't the complete version, but it was enough to prove that I had been working on the website long before Brenda even knew about it. I searched through my email archives, my fingers trembling with anticipation. Finally, I found it. A wave of relief washed over me. I had my first piece of evidence. Next, I remembered that I had shown my security plan to Mrs. Davis in accounting, asking for her opinion on the budget. Mrs. Davis was a kind and honest woman, and I knew she would tell the truth. I made a mental note to talk to her as soon as possible. I also decided to check the company server logs. As an IT specialist, I had access to all the computer activity on the network. I knew that if Brenda had stolen my flash drive, she would have had to plug it into her computer to copy the files. The server logs would show exactly when and where that happened. I spent hours poring over the server logs, searching for any trace of Brenda's activity. It was like looking for a needle in a haystack, but I was determined to find something. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, I found it. A record of Brenda's computer accessing a USB drive at the exact time my flash drive went missing. And the files she accessed were the same files that were on my flash drive, my presentation slides, my website code, and my security plan document. I printed out the server logs, highlighting the key information. I had my smoking gun. I had proof that Brenda had stolen my work and lied to get the promotion. Now it was time to decide what to do with it. I could go straight to Mr. Thompson, but I wasn't sure if he would believe me. He seemed to trust Brenda, and I didn't want to risk him dismissing my evidence. I needed a plan. A solid plan to make sure that justice was served. The next morning, I arrived at work with a newfound sense of purpose. I walked straight to Mrs. Davis's desk. "Mrs. Davis," I said, "do you have a minute to talk?" Mrs. Davis looked up from her computer, her kind eyes twinkling behind her glasses. "Of course, Lena. What's on your mind?" I explained to her about the promotion, about Brenda, and about my missing flash drive. I told her how I had shown her my security plan a few weeks ago and asked for her feedback. "Do you remember that, Mrs. Davis?" I asked, holding my breath. Mrs. Davis nodded. "Yes, Lena, I remember. You had a very impressive plan. You explained it all so clearly, and I could tell you had put a lot of work into it. Did Brenda ever show you a security plan?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Mrs. Davis frowned. "No, dear. Brenda never mentioned anything about a security plan to me." My heart leaped with joy. I had another piece of the puzzle. "Thank you, Mrs. Davis," I said, my voice filled with gratitude. "You don't know how much this means to me." "Of course, Lena," Mrs. Davis said. "I'm happy to help. You're a hard worker, and you deserve to be recognized for your efforts." That conversation gave me the confidence I needed. I knew I was on the right track. I had the email with my website code, the server logs showing Brenda copying my files, and Mrs. Davis's confirmation that Brenda had never shown her a security plan. It was enough. I had enough proof to expose Brenda's fraud. I decided to go to Mr. Thompson. I knew it was a risk, but I couldn't let Brenda get away with this. I couldn't let her steal my dreams. It was time to fight back. I took a deep breath, walked towards Mr. Thompson's office, and knocked on the door. This was it. The moment of truth. "Come in," Mr. Thompson said, his voice sounding a little distracted. I walked into his office, my heart pounding in my chest. Brenda was sitting in a chair opposite his desk, smiling sweetly. My stomach clenched. What was she doing here? "Lena, what can I do for you?" Mr. Thompson asked, looking at me with a mixture of curiosity and concern. I took a deep breath and laid my evidence on his desk, the printout of my website code email, the highlighted server logs, and a signed statement from Mrs. Davis confirming that Brenda had never shown her a security plan. "Mr. Thompson," I said, my voice trembling slightly, "I have proof that Brenda stole my ideas and lied to get the head of IT position." Brenda's smile vanished. Her eyes widened, and her face turned pale. "That's not true," she exclaimed, jumping to her feet. "Lena is just jealous because I got the promotion and she didn't." I ignored her and continued to speak to Mr. Thompson. "Brenda stole my flash drive a few days before the announcement. She copied my presentation, my website code, and my security plan. The server logs prove it. And Mrs. Davis can confirm that Brenda never created her own security plan." Mr. Thompson looked at the evidence on his desk, his expression unreadable. He picked up the server logs and examined them carefully. Then he read Mrs. Davis's statement. He looked from the evidence to Brenda, his eyes filled with disbelief. "Brenda," he said, his voice low and serious, "is this true?" Brenda opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She looked at me with a mixture of anger and fear. She knew she had been caught. "I think," Mr. Thompson said, "that we need to have a more private conversation. Lena, thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'll look into it immediately." I nodded and turned to leave, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. The first step was done. I had presented my evidence, and Mr. Thompson was taking it seriously. Now, all I could do was wait. But I knew, deep down, that the truth would come out. And when it did, Brenda would finally have to face the consequences of her actions. Before going to Mr. Thompson, I had considered confronting Brenda privately. A part of me hoped that she would confess, apologize, and maybe even offer to resign from the head of IT position. I imagined her breaking down in tears, admitting her guilt, and begging for forgiveness. In that scenario, I might have even considered forgiving her. Maybe. I found Brenda alone in the break room, making a cup of coffee. "Brenda," I said, my voice calm but firm, "can we talk for a minute?" She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of defiance and nervousness. "About what?" she asked, her voice sounding a little shaky. "About the promotion," I said. "About my missing flash drive. About the website code and the security plan." She took a sip of her coffee, avoiding my gaze. "I don't know what you're talking about, Lena," she said, her voice sounding more confident now. "I earned that promotion fair and square. I worked hard for it." "That's not true, Brenda," I said, my voice rising slightly. "You stole my ideas. You stole my work. You lied to get the promotion." She slammed her coffee cup down on the counter, her face flushed with anger. "How dare you accuse me of something like that?" she shouted. "You're just a sore loser. You can't handle the fact that I'm better than you." "I have proof, Brenda," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "I have the server logs. I have Mrs. Davis's statement. I know what you did." She laughed, a cold and bitter laugh. "So what?" she said. "It's my word against yours. No one will believe you." That's when I realized that she wasn't going to confess. She wasn't going to apologize. She wasn't going to do the right thing. She was going to fight me every step of the way. And that's when I knew that I had to expose her, no matter what it took. "You're wrong, Brenda," I said, my voice filled with determination. "People will believe me. And you will pay for what you did." I turned and walked out of the break room, leaving Brenda standing there, her face contorted with anger and fear. The private confrontation had failed. Now it was time for the public exposure. The next few days were agonizing. Mr. Thompson had said he would look into the matter, but he didn't say when he would make a decision. I tried to focus on my work, but it was difficult. I kept replaying the confrontation with Brenda in my head, wondering if I had done the right thing. Brenda, meanwhile, acted as if nothing had happened. She strutted around the office, giving orders and acting like she was the queen bee. She even tried to talk to me, pretending to be friendly, but I ignored her. I couldn't stand the sight of her. Finally, on Friday afternoon, Mr. Thompson called me into his office. My heart skipped a beat. This was it. The moment of truth. Brenda was already in his office, sitting in the same chair she had occupied before. Her face was pale, and her eyes were red and puffy, as if she had been crying. "Lena," Mr. Thompson said, his voice grave, "I've completed my investigation. I've reviewed the server logs, I've spoken with Mrs. Davis, and I've interviewed Brenda. And I've come to a decision." He paused, taking a deep breath. "Brenda," he said, "I'm very disappointed in you. Your actions were unethical and unacceptable. You stole Lena's ideas, you lied about your qualifications, and you deceived me and the entire company." Brenda burst into tears. "It's not fair," she sobbed. "Lena is just trying to ruin my life." "That's not true, Brenda," Mr. Thompson said, his voice firm but gentle. "You ruined your own life. You made a choice to cheat and lie, and now you have to face the consequences." He turned to me, his eyes filled with sympathy. "Lena," he said, "I want to apologize to you. I made a mistake. I should have seen through Brenda's act. You deserved that promotion, and I'm going to make things right." A wave of relief washed over me. The truth had finally come out. Brenda had been exposed, and justice was about to be served. "Brenda," Mr. Thompson continued, his voice stern, "effective immediately, you are suspended without pay. We will be conducting a full review of your employment history, and depending on what we find, further disciplinary action may be taken, up to and including termination." Brenda's sobs intensified. She buried her face in her hands and wailed, "It's not my fault. I just wanted to be successful." Mr. Thompson sighed. "Success should never come at the expense of honesty and integrity, Brenda. You made a poor choice, and now you have to face the consequences." He turned to me again, his eyes filled with sincerity. "Lena," he said, "I know this doesn't make up for what happened, but I want to offer you the head of IT position. You earned it, and you deserve it. I hope you'll accept." A smile spread across my face. "Yes, Mr. Thompson," I said, my voice filled with joy. "I accept. Thank you so much." He smiled back. "Good," he said. "I know you'll do a great job. You're a talented and dedicated IT specialist, and I'm confident that you'll be a valuable asset to the company." Brenda, still sobbing, was escorted out of the office by security. I watched her go, feeling a mixture of pity and satisfaction. Pity because she had ruined her own career, and satisfaction because justice had finally been served. As I sat there in Mr. Thompson's office, basking in the glow of my newfound success, I couldn't help but think about my dreams. The house with the garden, the fluffy dog. They were still within reach. And this time I knew that I had earned them. I had worked hard, I had stayed true to myself, and I had stood up for what was right. And that, I realized, was the greatest reward of all. The feeling of knowing that I had done the right thing, even when it was difficult. It was a feeling that no one could ever take away from me. The following week, the office was buzzing with gossip about Brenda. Everyone knew what had happened, and most people were shocked and disappointed. Some of my coworkers came up to me to offer their congratulations and express their support. They said they had always known that I was the best person for the job, and they were glad that the truth had finally come out. I never saw Brenda again. I heard through the grapevine that she had been officially terminated from her position and that she was having a hard time finding a new job. Her reputation had been tarnished, and no one wanted to hire someone who had been caught stealing and lying. While I felt a little bit sorry for her, I couldn't help but think that she had brought it all on herself. She had made a series of bad choices, and she had to live with the consequences. As for me, I embraced my new role as head of IT with enthusiasm and determination. I implemented my website idea, making it easier for employees to get help with their computer problems. I upgraded the company's security system, protecting our data from cyber attacks. I even organized training sessions for the other employees, teaching them new skills and helping them to become more efficient. Mr. Thompson was very impressed with my work, and he often praised me for my dedication and leadership. I finally felt like I was being seen and appreciated for my hard work and my talents. And, best of all, I started saving up for my house with the garden and the fluffy dog. My dreams were finally coming true, thanks to my hard work, my honesty, and my determination to stand up for what was right. It was a long and difficult journey, but it was worth it. I had learned a valuable lesson about the importance of integrity and the power of perseverance. And I knew that I would never let anyone steal my dreams again. A few months later, Mr. Thompson called me into his office again. I wondered what he wanted this time. Had I done something wrong? Was there another problem I needed to fix? Lena, he said, smiling warmly, I wanted to talk to you about your performance as head of IT. I'm very impressed with the work you've been doing. You've exceeded all of my expectations. He paused, and then continued, I know that the past few months haven't been easy. You had to deal with Brenda's betrayal, you had to step into a new role, and you had to prove yourself to everyone. But you handled it all with grace and determination. You've shown that you're a true leader. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a small, velvet box. I wanted to give you something to show my appreciation for your hard work and your dedication to the company. He opened the box, revealing a beautiful gold necklace with a small, computer-shaped pendant. My eyes widened with surprise and delight. It's beautiful, Mr. Thompson, I said, my voice filled with gratitude. Thank you so much. He smiled. You deserve it, Lena, he said. You've earned it. And I want you to know that I have complete faith in you. I know that you're going to do great things here at the company. He then offered me something else, a significant raise in my salary. You deserve to be compensated fairly for your hard work and your contributions, he said. I was speechless. I didn't know what to say. I had come so far from that day when Brenda stole my promotion. Now, I was not only the head of IT, but I was also being recognized and rewarded for my efforts. My confidence had been fully restored, and I knew that I could achieve anything I set my mind to. It felt amazing. It felt like all my hard work, all my sacrifices, had finally paid off. It was a moment I would never forget. Looking back on everything that happened with Brenda, I realized I had learned some valuable lessons. The most important lesson was the importance of honesty. Brenda had tried to take a shortcut to success by lying and stealing, but in the end, her dishonesty had cost her everything. Honesty, on the other hand, had been my greatest strength. It had allowed me to earn the trust of my coworkers, to build a solid reputation, and to ultimately achieve my goals. I also learned the importance of standing up for myself. At first, I had been hesitant to confront Brenda, but I eventually realized that I had to fight for what was right. If I hadn't stood up for myself, Brenda would have gotten away with her deception, and I would have been stuck in a dead-end job, forever wondering what might have been. I also learned to be more careful about who I trust. I had been too naive, too willing to share my ideas and my work with others without considering their motives. I realized that not everyone is as honest and trustworthy as I am, and that I need to be more discerning about who I let into my inner circle. Finally, I learned that success is not just about getting a promotion or making a lot of money. It's about doing something that you love, about making a difference in the world, and about staying true to your values. It's about being a good person, a hard worker, and a valuable member of your community. And it's about never giving up on your dreams, no matter how difficult the journey may be. The experience with Brenda had been painful and challenging, but it had also made me a stronger, wiser, and more resilient person. I was grateful for the lessons I had learned, and I knew that they would serve me well in the years to come. I was ready to face any challenge that came my way, confident that I could overcome it with honesty, integrity, and a never-give-up attitude. With the head of IT position secured and my confidence restored, I truly embraced my new beginning. I was determined to make the most of this opportunity, not just for myself, but for the entire company. I knew I had a responsibility to lead with integrity, to inspire my team, and to create a positive and productive work environment. I started by meeting with each member of the IT department, listening to their ideas and concerns, and working together to create a shared vision for the future. I wanted to foster a culture of collaboration, innovation, and continuous improvement. I encouraged my team to take risks, to experiment with new technologies, and to never stop learning. I also made a point of being a mentor to the younger IT specialists, sharing my knowledge and experience, and helping them to develop their skills. I wanted to create a pipeline of talented individuals who could eventually take over my role and continue to lead the department with excellence. Outside of work, I finally bought my little house with the big garden. It wasn't fancy, but it was perfect for me. I spent my weekends planting tomatoes, tending to my flowers, and enjoying the peace and quiet of my backyard. And, of course, I got my fluffy dog. A golden retriever puppy named Sparky. He was the most adorable and playful creature I had ever met, and he quickly became my best friend. As I sat in my garden one evening, watching Sparky chase butterflies and admiring my blooming tomatoes, I realized that I had finally found true happiness. I had overcome adversity, I had achieved my goals, and I had built a life that was filled with purpose, meaning, and joy. And it was all thanks to my hard work, my honesty, and my unwavering commitment to doing what was right. My new beginning was everything I had ever hoped for, and I was excited to see what the future held. I knew that with integrity as my guide, I could accomplish anything.